Hello, and welcome to the Banker's Tech Talk video series looking at all things fintech. I'm Joy Macknight, Deputy Editor at The Banker, and I'm joined by April Rudin, who is President and Founder of the Rudin Group, which is a marketing strategy company looking at the wealth management space and financial services. April, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Joy.
So what are you seeing in terms of technology trends in the wealth management space?
After being probably one of the oldest industries, most staid industries, and really fighting disruption for so many years, there are tech trends I'm happy to report. So I think we've gone from conversation to really commitment. I think there's been a lot of intentions that are now coming to impact. And so I think there's a lot of activity in the wealth management space around technology, and that's what we're going to see over the next couple of years, especially into 2019. I think one of the most interesting trends for me has been the idea of partnerships of all types, and that's really what's going to transform wealth management in terms of technology. I'm not sure people have really thought about that as a tech trend, but it totally is if you think about it, Joy. So you have companies consolidating. Those are some partnerships, which is changing the wealth management space. Then you have the incumbents and the fintechs partnering up, which is changing the space. So I think partnerships would be the word for 2019.
And obviously Robo advisors is a topic that's been hitting the headlines. What is the market reaction to Robo advisors today?
Another buzzword, right? I think it was invented by probably some wealth managers who are a little bit afraid of technology and just to sort of conjure up the idea of some robot actually managing your money. So I would venture to say that most investors have never heard the term robo-advisor and don't even know what that means. So if you ask me a question, what does the market think of robo-advisors? I think that would be almost nothing because it's not a term that they know. In terms of companies that are providing robo services or let's say self-service wealth management, I think the trend that we've seen is gone from full-on technology and all automated management to adding of human advisors. And interestingly enough, we've seen on the other end, companies that have been providing all human advisors moving toward providing some self-serve solutions. So I think what we're seeing is the trend toward, it's not an all or nothing game, but the trend toward hybrid advice. A mix of offerings where investors can find a little bit of technology if they like to play around with it, manage their own money, make some of their own selections, but also having the human advisor to advise them on more than just investments, but the holistic financial planning.
What kind of advice would you give sort of the incumbents, analog, let's say wealth management advisors that are trying to make that transformation, they're trying to digitalize? What kind of advice would you give them for their strategy to do that?
Analog, that's a very funny word to use with the incumbents, but it's absolutely true. I think that you have a lot of issues coming up because of the people involved in these institutions. So it's difficult when you think about the skill set of some of these institutions, whether it be people not incentivized to move forward because of their compensation or because of their longevity in the market. The average age of a financial advisor is 55. So that's difficult to advise them on how to change when they have this workforce. That is one area of some inertia. Another area of inertia is the idea of legacy systems. They've consolidated, as I mentioned before, and they're just, a mess of systems that are brought together from different consolidations in terms of their business, and so just unraveling that becomes difficult. So I think the idea is to go back to some of these partnerships that I mentioned before, to onboard new talent, new technology, and level set the playing field to something new rather than unraveling what's already been happening.
A lot of people talk about the future of work, and obviously the wealth management industry is going through a lot of change in terms of the skill sets that you mentioned. What will the future of wealth management look like, do you think?
So what I see is a shift from the left brain skills that typical wealth managers have, which are more quantitative skills, to right brain skills, more qualitative skills. So I think that's really where the shift in the future of work is going to be in wealth management. So you have people shifting from having a skill set that allowed them to be able to use a spreadsheet, perform calculations, make trades, right? More of the left brain sort of work into right brain work. How do clients feel about their financial planning? How can advisors help them with their financial planning? And I think that gives all of us hope and excitement for the future of wealth management, is the idea of the people skills and the relationship skills that we've always thought about really coming to the forefront of wealth management.
How can wealth managers really attract and manage the millennial talent?
That's one of my favorite areas of wealth management is how is the new generation going to come and work in this workplace. So I think the idea is, number one, they have to have a digital workplace, because as much as that attracts investors, it also attracts the future of work and workers. So it has to be an environment that is digital and friendly for millennials. The other trend that I've seen is teams, right? There are always been teams in wealth management, but now today you see sort of a different makeup. That is a baby boomer or Gen X team combined with a millennial team. So I think that's really how firms will end up attracting people, by changing the way the workplace is and changing the work environment to make it much more friendly, so that every generation can learn from the other generation and really bring the best in class in wealth management to clients.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your insights, April.
Thank you, Joy.